Hi everyone, welcome back to John Florio channel. I am Mary and I'm here to talk about John Florio. Today I will talk about the beautiful dedication that John Florio wrote to the Earl of Southampton, Henry Wriothesley, in A World of Words in 1598. I explained in my last video how Stopes, the very first biographer of Henry Wriothesley, wrote in her book that John Florio's dedication echoed Shakespeare, particularly the sonnets that Shakespeare wrote. For this reason, I would like to introduce you to John Florio's style. For many reasons. First and foremost, because none wrote like Florio. None. His style reflected a bit his personality. Bizarre, quaint, very creative, extremely sensitive. The use of strange, archaic words, sometimes borrowed from French, Spanish, Italian, and molded into English. He created actually more than 1,000 new words for the English language, compounds. He used a lot of proverbs, witty sayings, compounds. Florio was also particularly focused on the rhythm and the sound of the words when he wrote something, and we will see it. And in this dedication, he paid a lot of attention to the sound of the words. When he wrote, the words had a sound, had a rhythm, and you will understand it when I will make some example here today. Florio was flamboyant, extremely creative, and in his style he often mentions nature, the soil where his fruits, his works grow. Nature is always present in John Florio's works, in his mindset. There is certainly a connection, I think, with the place he grew up as a child. Here is a mesmerizing view of SOGLIO in Switzerland, where John Florio spent his childhood. I believe that in being immersed in nature play a fundamental role in shaping his writing style. For example, in Second Fruits, the title is Second Fruits, Florio Second Fruits, so he doesn't write the name here. You see, he doesn't write John Florio, he is just Florio. Florio Second Fruits, be gatherer of 12 trees. Why? Why 12 trees? 12 trees are 12 chapters of his work. And in his work, Second Fruits, he writes, if I prove more than I promise, I will impute it to the bounty of the gracious soil where my endeavors are planted. What does this mean? If I'll be successful, it will be thanks to my country, England, where my efforts and talent are planted. And when he refers as to how he has written these works, he writes, I have ransacked the best Italian fruits, the Tuscan garden, so that they could flourish and prosper in my native stock. You can eat them and they will be sweet, or save them and they will adorn your orchard. Florio was particularly fond of this word, sweet. He used it very often. So what he's saying here, he's saying, I have read and borrowed as many Italian plots, as many Italian stories, and I have translated them and rewritten so they could flourish and prosper in my country, England. And then he makes this metaphor as you can eat them and they will be sweet, or save them and they will adorn your orchard. So again, this connection with nature. Another metaphor that Florio used is that of birth. He gave birth to two daughters, first fruits and second fruits. These two are brought forth as the daughters and offspring of my care and study. So his first fruits and second fruits, his two works are his daughters, the fruits of his care and his study. But how are they? Are they equal? No. So Notice how he writes here. My elder, because she was ambitious, and married for preferment and honor, but this younger, second first, fairer, better nurtured, and comeler than her sister, she put on the best ornaments, and following the guise of her countrywomen, has voluntarily made her choice plainly, telling me that she will not lead apes in hell. This obsolete phrase, apes in hell, expresses the fancy consequences of dying a spinster. I match with such a one as she best liked, and therefore I have given my consent. He literally wrote a plot about two sisters. At the end of Florio's prose, you don't understand if he's talking about two real people or about a book. So from a side we have the connection with nature. From another side he feels himself as the mother of his works. Now Florio wrote this dedication in a word or words. I will analyze this dedication since Stopes underlined that it echoes Shakespeare phrases. She also made a connection with his sonnets. He wrote this work. It was published in 1598, but the work was already finished and ready 2 years earlier, so 1596. So that's the year when Florio wrote it, 1596, maybe 1595. He refers to Henry not just as his patron. I have read an extract in the last video in which Florio writes, as you can see here, I owe and vow the years they have to live. Between them there was 20 years gap. Florio was 40 years old, Henry was 20 years old. And in this dedication he refers to himself as a man in his reaper years. In my reaper here, he writes it in this dedication, I have in my reaper years. In 1596, if you were 40 years old, you could consider yourself, I'm not saying old, but quite old. I mean, you can compare 40 years old today with 40 years old in the Elizabethan era. In the Elizabethan era, it was great if you could give birth to a child without any disease, to not die hunger, quarter, or die due to the plague. There is a big difference between 40 years old in 1596 and 40 years old today. So Florio in 1596 felt himself in his reaper years. So I think he had a father-son relationship with Henry. It has been suggested that Lord Barghley, William Cecil, whom Florio knew very well because Barghley was also a protector of John Florio's father, Michelangelo, and he played a fundamental role in Florio's first years in London when he was chosen by Robert Dudley and was later sent to Oxford. Barghley trusted John Florio. And since Cecil was Henry's guardian and wanted Henry to marry the woman chosen by him, it has been suggested that probably Florio was chosen as Henry's servant and writer to try to convince him to get married. I don't know if he ever tried, to be honest, and I don't know in which way he tried to convince Henry to get married. Anyway, he didn't succeed at all. Florio was certainly fond of Henry, and this father-son relationship marked, I think, the very first years of Florio's career with Henry. Later, he gained more and more confidence, getting into Henry's private affairs. I think he had a talent, the young Earl Henry, in tricking the people he worked with. I mean, he had charm. He was fascinating. He could ask Florio whatever he wanted. Florio always said yes. Now that you have the background of Florio's style, the way he writes, and his connection to Henry, it is time to read this dedication and analyze it. I will read just a couple of pages. The dedication is quite long, but I will analyze just a couple of pages so that you can first have a glimpse of Florio's writing style. here we are, A World of Words, published in 1598. Florio writes this dedication not just to Harry, but also to Roger, Earl of Rutland, and Lucy, Countess of Belford. It is hard to understand John Florio's style. You have to read in between the lines to really catch the essence of his style, of his prose. So let's start. This dedication, right honourable and that worthily, may happily make your honours muse. Well fed that dedication that may excite your muse. I have no authorized herald to marshal your precedence. Private duty might perhaps give one the priority, where public respect should prefer another. What he is saying here, private duty might perhaps give one the priority, where public respect should prefer another. He say in public, I am Florio, the tutor, the translator, lexicographer. In private, I am someone else. So again, double personality. Without disparagement, may it please your honours to join hand in hand, and so jointly to lend an ear and lend it to beseech you to a poor man. So you can hear that, join hand in hand, and so jointly, you know, the word place that he's doing here, to a poor man. Florio compares himself to a servant, to a poor man, that invites your honours to a christening. You see here the connection with the birth, his works, that I and my poor studies, like Philemon and Baucis, may in so low a cottage entertain so high, if no deities, yet dignities, of whom the poet testifies. First, Florio invites to a christening, so again, his patron are the godfathers of his works. And in my poor studies, he's a servant, he's a poor man. He makes a reference to Ovid Metamorphoses, book 8, with Philemon and Baucis, and what he writes. He makes a translation of this part of Ovid Metamorphoses. He writes the Italian and he makes his own translation. But of all other cheers, most big content, a cheerful countenance and a willing mind, poor entertainment be richly meant, pleaded excuse, Father which was behind. Two over hasty fruits of mine, now some years since, like two forward females, as I've said before, his first fruits and second fruits are his daughters. The fruits of his early years, they are two females, two women. The one put herself in service to an earl of excellence, the other to a gentleman of worth, both into the world to run the race of their fortune. So first fruits and second fruits, his daughters, run the race of fortune in the world. Now where my rover youth brought forth those female fruits, my reaper ears, so he say, when I was younger I gave birth to two females, two daughters. Now in my reaper ears I give birth to a male. Afford me, I cannot say, a brain babe Minerva, or at all as says a first hour. So he say, now in my reaper ears I gave birth to a brain babe Minerva. So this work is the product of a mature maker, so he brings forward a male child. But rather from my Italian simile and English side, a bouncy boy, Bacchus-like, almost all names, and being as the manner of this country is, after some strength gathered to bring thee abroad. Now here Florio mentions another story from Ovid Metamorphoses, that of Semele and Bacchus. In the third book of Metamorphoses, there is the story of the birth of Bacchus. For Florio, his work is an Italian Semele and English tithe. In the myth of Ovid, Semele is the earth, the soil, enriched by the ashes left from the fire caused by Jove's mating with her. So Florio wants us to see Semele in this way. She is the Italian soil, the Italian earth that his English thigh has nurtured to produce his child, a word or words. You understand what kind of mental trip he did? Now, the same Bacchus, like almost all names, this too is another reference to Ovid Metamorphoses, the fourth book where the poet Ovid gives a list of all the names Bacchus came to have, which is a fitting analogy for a dictionary. Now, I was to entreat 3 witnesses to the entry of it into Christendom. Over presumptuous I grant to entreat so high a presence, by your honor so gracious I hope to be over entreat. Somewhat perhaps like the word entreat, but I might be wrong though. Now, here Florio begins to praise his patrons, pointing out first the natural benignity of the earl's a countess, the able employment of useful servants, and the likelihood that his child, his work, will be useful. Florio here plays a lot with a hierarchical social world. Florio was no aristocrat. He had humble origins. However, if you read his works, he was very conscious of his own worth. He was noble blood, of course, but he felt himself as a sort of an aristocrat. He had an aristocratic spirit. In fact, here he writes that his patrons are benign because of their birth. Your birth, high noble, more than gentle, your place above others, as in degree, so in high of bounty and other virtues. And here the famous dedication to Henry, and in truth I acknowledge an entire debt, not only of my best knowledge, but of all, yea, more than an overcant of bounteous lordship, most noble, most virtuous, and most honourable Earl of Southampton, in whose pay and patronage I have lived some years, and to whom I owe and vow the years I have to live. But he continues, he writes other things to Henry. But as to me and many more, the glorious and gracious sunshine of your honour has infused light and life. Henry is the sun. Florio compares Henry to the sun. So may my lesser borrow after principal respect to your benign aspect and influence afford some lustre to some others. Good parts imparted are not tempered. You hear that? The sound, the rhythm. Good parts imparted are not tempered. Your springs are first to serve yourself, ye may yield your neighbor sweet water. He was obsessed with this word, sweet. He writes sweet everywhere. Your taper is to light to you first, and ye may light your neighbor's candle. I may make doubt, at least I or mine, be not now of any further use to your self-sufficiency. Be at home so instructed for the Italian, as teaching a learner could supply, that there seems no need of trouble, and now by troubles are accomplished as what wants to perfection. So Florio here is writing that Henry, probably with the Earl of Rutland, went to Italy. I don't know if he went with them, if he traveled with them. I don't think so, to be honest. But he's saying that you are so instructed in Italian, you are so well versed in Italian, so you don't need me anymore because now you know Italian better than me. Now here he refers to Lucy, Countess of Bedford. Notice how phoning he is. My most honored, because best adore madam. But who by conceited industries or industrious conceit. You see here, conceited industry or industrious conceit. This is Florio. This is how he writes. In Italian as in French as in Spanish, in all as in English, understand what you read, write as you read, and speak as you write, yet rather charge your mind with matter than your memory with words. He is writing, you are so perfect, you are a polyglot, you know so many languages. What kind of use can this dictionary have for you if you are so well versed in Italian as in Spanish as in French? Why I am dedicating this dictionary to you? And Florio here makes a very good point, because he says something very important that people seem to have forgotten. He mentions how even Italians in front of some works written not by Boccaccio, Dante and Petrarch, so not written in the official Tuscan language, the official Italian of the time, but the works written in vernacular. So the works written in vernacular Italian contains dialect words. They are very difficult and hard to understand. So for this kind of works, Florio will help them by providing all those troublesome and archaic dialect words used by Aretino, by Grotto, Castiglione, Cinzio, Bandello. These authors use vernacular Italian, not the official language. To read and to understand these works is not easy. Florio points out in this dedication that he himself had troubles understand some words, some phrases. So you can realize how hard and difficult it can be for non-native Italian to read and understand these works written in vernacular Italian. I hope that you liked this video on John Florio, his writing style, and the dedication that he wrote in a word or word. I just wanted to give you a glimpse of Florio's amazing writing style. This writing style needs so many explanations. I show you how sometimes even a word, a couple of phrases have so many references, metaphors. They are the product of his outstanding knowledge and his erudition. Let me know in the comments what do you think about Florio's writing style. If you have questions, comments, suggestions. If you are new, don't forget to subscribe and stay resolute. Bye!